Junior Volleyball Association presents Sideline Strategy, a volleyball podcast. Today's episode features Jill Hunt, director of NKYVC in Northern Kentucky, who has been a leader in the club's success at all ages for over 2 decades. NKYVC has a robust youth program, fielding competitive club teams as young as 8U. We're here to learn how they've developed their grassroots program and the keys to their success. And welcome, Jill. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. We're excited to talk.
Yeah, I know it's May 1st here, so got through April. You have had a super busy club season as usual. How are you doing today?
Well, everything's good. Thank you. We had, like you said, very busy, but a lot of really good successes leading up till May. And then, of course, now just preparing for the end of the year and what next year looks like. So this is always a big transition month for us, which is good and exciting. So
That's awesome. So can you share some background for the listeners today about your club, as far as what programs you offer, what ages, and all of that?
sure. So we've been around, this is our 26th year. So we've been around for a long
Wow.
time. And if you don't know about NKYVC, we actually built it year by year. So when we started, we only had 11, 12s, and 13s. And then every year we added on an age group. Um, and then, of course, got bigger and bigger. To be honest, we didn't start this club thinking it was going to be as huge as it is. But we obviously, our goal is to, give volleyball to everybody who wants to play volleyball. And so we have built it so from the ground up, so to speak. And this year we have 48 travel teams with 5 boys teams on top of that, and then 24 non-travel teams. And then we do programming as well. So like this, our programming coming up in 2 weeks, we had over 600 kids registered for, which is crazy. So we try to do 80 per session, and we have like over 100 on the wait list for each age group.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah,
Wow.
we started our sprinkles program yesterday, which is our pre-K to first grade, which is one of the things we're talking about. 120 kids in the program with 40 on the wait list, so it tells you how big that is. So we kind of do it all. We go from, like I said, pre-K, so 5 or 6 years old, all the way up to 18, boys and girls, and then we try to hit every aspect. So we have our travel teams, obviously, four national teams that travel. Schedule kind of changes a little bit as you go down, but they all try to, at least at the older ages, try to compete to get to nationals. And then we have an in-house program where we do 2 tournaments for them. Those are for kids, obviously, who can't make a travel team, but then also some kids who are just dual sport athletes or have a lot going on that just can't do the travels part of the game. So it is a competitive league that we do in-house. And then, of course, all of our programming is like we talked about, throughout the year, depending on the space and the timing for things. So
You mentioned boys teams. What ages are those teams?
we have it this year, we have a 12, 13, 14, and 2 16s. So
Very
we started boys years ago when they tried to start boys in Kentucky, and we had a few teams then, and then we stopped because it was not, for us in this area, it's super hard because it just is not a sanctioned sport in high school,
Mhm.
and getting boys out of baseball and basketball, and because it overlaps with all those, is tough.
Mhm.
And then we started again. This is our third year for our second go round. Um, and then the Kentucky schools just sanctioned it as a sport in Kentucky. So we're hoping to see some growth here coming up because I think there's going to be more boys that are interested that get to play in high school. So
Yeah, that's great. That is definitely one of the sports that, has been growing across the country, but having it sanctioned by the state definitely helps.
makes a big difference. I mean, Ohio, we're on the border and we get Ohio kids and they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been hard because like the first time we did this in Kentucky, when we tried, we had to go over and play Ohio people because there was very few schools that had it, and
Hmm.
just got smoked because they've been playing forever, you know. And so we have it in grade school, but not in high school. So hopefully this change will then promote the boys a little bit more in our area.
So you mentioned starting with 11s, 12s, and 13s back when NKYVC started. I mean, you've been at the forefront of junior volleyball for some time now. And there was a time when teams didn't really exist as young as 8 or 10 years old. And
Right.
if they did, they were competing against teams that were older or, just had a select number of teams to play against. So how has the competitive landscape for youth players evolved? And how do you feel like it's impacted the game?
So, I'll start with the impact. I mean, obviously, I just think kids these days are just so much better at the sport than they were years ago. Part of that maybe is the genetics, and the way that kids change over the years. But I think also the ability to be able to start, so much younger and just go grow from there. Like my oldest is 20. My two in college, they both started when they were 4, because they could. And I was in the gym, right? And they played their first travel team because our nines, we call them travel, but they're not traveling. Um, they started at 7 on a travel team. And I just think learning the sport at an earlier age has impacted, I think volleyball can be, it's a very hard sport, to know not just the physical part of it, but then understanding the game. So the earlier you start to learn the game, the easier it is when it becomes more physical. And I think that progression of people starting a little bit younger has changed the sport itself. For us, we've had teams. I actually called my mom as my administrative person. I called her this morning, like, okay, how long ago? And we can't remember when we started with the 8, 9s, and 10s, to be honest. But like I said, my oldest is 20 and she started at 7. So it's been, I would say probably 15 years since we've had 8, 9s, and 10s teams. And you're right. Nobody has been like right now there's 10s tournaments, but there's not even 9s tournaments. So we have 2 8-year-old teams and then we have 5 9-year-old teams. And they don't have anybody to play because people don't do that, right? And to be honest with you, at that age, we're looking at growth, fundamental growth and development, as opposed to going out winning tournaments. So we don't want them to go somewhere to get smoked. You know what I mean by older kids. We want them to be able to develop it and love it and understand the game.
Yeah.
And for us, what we've done, and I think it's game changing, is that so our 8s, our 9s, and our lower 10s teams, all we do what we call friendship scrimmages. And so that's their tournaments. And they come in and we invite the other 9s, 10s around the area to come in and compete as well. And we do it as a tournament. They wear their uniform, they do the whole thing. Everybody wants a uniform, everybody wants a backpack. Like that's the big, big thing. All the 8s
Yeah.
wait to get their backpack. But we come in and we play it like 20-minute games. So it's not really like 225. It's not a whole entire match. But what I love about it is you have the ability to kind of step on the court as a coach and fix things. So it's more of a learning progression, even though they're playing the game. We allow them to serve overhand starting at the 10-foot line. Like my 2 8s coaches were so beyond excited that all 10 of their kids on both teams were serving overhand behind the 10-foot line by the end of the season. And then we just, based on your age and how you're doing, we progress you back in that serve while you're playing. There's no like real rule. It's just challenge your kid as much as you can. And so they come in and they get to play each other and they get to do the whole take a break and eat your lunch together like you do at club tournaments. And we do a big picture and everybody gets a cupcake on the way out. And life is great because we're learning volleyball and we love it. And so they still get that competitive nature and that friendship scrimmage, but they're not necessarily going out to big 10 tournaments and getting beat. I think for me, as we're talking about like a grassroots program and how to develop this sport, so many people at the younger ages lose sight of the learning and the growth of a player. And we all just want to win. So they're banging balls over on a third hit or on the first ball. They're
Yeah.
serving underhand just to make it in, those
Yeah.
kind of things. And we really focus on making sure we're learning the overhand serve. Like, my kids, this is a story I always tell about my second oldest. She I told him underhand serving was illegal. Like that's how you just don't get to do it. It's illegal. So the first game tournament we were in third grade, so kid served underhand and she like yelled out like that's illegal. I'm like, "Hey, not really illegal, but like I feel like if you're teaching them the right way to do it from the beginning, the
Hmm.
sport just progressively gets better and they get better as players. So we celebrate overhand serving in 3 hits, not winning matches when it's this age, right? Like to me, that is how you train the sport instead of just banging it over to win a point. And some people don't believe in that philosophy, but I think that that has been our greatest, you know, asset to watching these kids grow and learn to be competitive and want to do it the right way. And I think the parents have to buy in on that too, because, we've had years where it's been a struggle where some parents are like, well, we're not winning or we're not whatever. And I'm like, well, compare it to the other people that we're playing, right? Like we're doing the 3 hits, we're serving overhand. And that's gonna be the game changer once you hit that 11, 12, 13 years of age and you know how to do it the right way. So
You touched on so many points, so many things that I'm like, okay, let's talk more about this. So you brought up that volleyball is pretty hard to learn and at the younger ages to teach, and it just takes time. I mean, if you compare it to so many sports that kids are entering at 4 or 5 years old, t-ball and soccer, and the ball can hit the ground and the game still goes. And, how do you, I guess, with your program, like how do you get your players to understand, that they have to move and they have to, that piece of it, I feel like is one of the hardest things on top of the serving, which is, yeah, the next question I had. But
like,
how do you introduce it at such a young age to get them to be successful keeping the ball off the ground? What do you guys do?
it is hard. I will say, I think it took us quite a few years to convince little ones to come play volleyball as opposed to soccer. Like we're a big soccer area in this area. And again, everybody's running around chasing the ball and yay for us, right? And volleyball
Yeah.
a bit harder. Um, so we just take a lot of, well, first of all, we use much lighter balls. We do the soft touch, we do blow up balls, we do
Hmm.
anything um, that makes sense for little tiny arms to be able to touch and play. But we do a lot of just, like footwork, so to speak, like even just rolling balls and going to get it, running and catching, like just different things that promote just go get the ball, right? Like, and you do compare it to soccer and t-ball sometimes is like when you're doing those sports, what are you doing, right? Trying to go get the ball. So let's try and go get the ball. Um, and it's just more of a like we do fundamental reps within there to teach them like how to pass, how to go get it. We do pursuit drills with 6-year-olds, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, because why
Yeah.
not? I mean, the game is boring when you watch it just hit the ground.
Right.
Um, and so anything that we can do to encourage that is just, I think that's the biggest thing is learning to just go get it, just like you do in those other sports.
Yeah. The serve. Okay.
Yep.
Completely agree with where you're at, like with teaching overhead serving, because then, they continue to practice that rep and just the motion of throwing. I feel like a lot of kids, need to learn what that motion looks like. And by doing that overhead serve, they're, strengthening the muscles they need, the technique they need, right? So I love that you guys don't teach underhand. Do you ever work on it or not at all?
Underhand? Never.
Yeah. Okay.
No. So, I always encourage, like I talk to a lot of grade school coaches because, in our area, I don't know how it is across the country, but here we have a lot of just parent volunteers that,
Yeah.
and what you're doing, obviously, in grade school is going to transition into club and vice versa. In our grade school, in third grade, you're allowed to have 2 contacts or 2 tries at the serve.
Okay.
So my rule as a grade school coach when I coached third grade was always you had to try overhand the first time, like you had to. And then the second time you could serve underhand if you need it, like because obviously some of these kids are never getting it over because they're not strong enough. So we would do in practice where you had to step and throw. If you can
Hmm.
throw it over the net, you can serve it over the net, and you weren't allowed to try underhand. If you couldn't throw it over the net, then clearly, if you can't throw it, you're not serving it over, right? Because some of these kids are tiny bitties that I
Yeah.
would allow them to serve it underhand on the second ball, but never taught it. So like no teaching form whatsoever of it, just good luck. And to be honest with you, in that grade school scenario of me coaching, by mid-season, those kids that couldn't make it over just wanted to try both times overhand. They didn't even want to do underhand anymore, which was, for me a huge win because it's like, let's keep working on this, right?
Hmm.
So for club, we just have never, I mean, it just never, we just don't do it at all. And we just start with the throws. I mean, we lower the nets, we have lighter balls, they can stand one step behind the net, whatever, like until they learn it. And just watching, I think that's probably for me with these littles is my most joy. I think watching them progress and then getting it and
Yeah.
so excited about accomplishing something so big, right?
Yeah. All the times you failed, right?
Yep.
Here we are,
Here we
you got
are,
it.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, and they've like I had a little one walk out when she's a 6-year-old on our eights team, and she came running out of practice like 2 weeks ago and like straight at me like I made 3 serves, three. Like she was like you would have thought it was like the greatest thing that's ever happened to her in her entire life, and that's what's worth it, right? And
Yeah.
they're going to be frustrated, and coaching it's going to be frustrating because balls are going to hit the floor, people are going to miss their serves. But again, if you focus on we're here to get better, right? Like when I coach littles, I give candy bars for 3 hits, right? And then after like our 8-1s last year, my daughter coached them, so I covered for her one time because she's a basketball player too, and like, okay, we're gonna get candy bar for 3 hits, and we did it 3 times. I'm like, now you don't get the candy bar unless it's a pass set and a hit over. Like that
Hmm.
third ball doesn't count, right? But so just like learning the progression of what the team can handle, but
Yeah.
celebrating the pieces of the game that are more fundamentally important than the points on the scoreboard, I think is just what changes how kids learn, you know what I mean, and how what their mindset is and what they want to do to be better inside the sport. Because it is hard.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. And I think coaches just need to stick with it. Sometimes I think they kind of bend,
Oh, for
because they
sure.
feel like it's not working. The kids are getting discouraged, but it sounds like you're finding ways to really encourage them, motivate them, make it fun. And it's okay if you make mistakes, right? Like you're going to make a
100%.
lot of mistakes as you learn.
Yeah. And I think those are all important lessons as you progress through the sport itself, right? Like we're not going to be perfect. I mean, that's even a talk I had with my 18s at 18 Open this last weekend. Like, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get blocked. Everybody here is good, right? Like you have to be able to bounce back. How you respond to your failures is what makes you a better player, right? How do you get better? And if you can teach that at the younger ages, then you're already succeeding for helping them in the future. I just think it's a mindset, and you have to, I think so many times we look at these little kids like they can't do this or they're not cognitively smart enough to do whatever. But if you give them some expectations that are reasonable,
Mhm.
they're gonna respond to them and they're gonna be better because of it. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's talk about your younger teams and how this season is going, and if there's like anything maybe you want to do differently next year. You mentioned your sprinkles program starting up, but
yep.
specifically your teams that are competing.
So our competing teams, we have this year we have 2 8s, 5 9s, and 7 10s. So like I said, our eights and I know, right? 9 2 through 5, and then 10, 6, and 7. They all stay in-house.
Okay.
So they all train twice a week. The littles do it only an hour because I think attention spans can only last for so long. And then the other ones do an hour and a half twice a week. And then they do their 3 friendship scrimmages, which I think is a perfect balance for them to be able to do the competitions within their practices, but then not have to worry about, the whole big game, so to speak. Our lower 10s do 3 tournaments, our 9 1s do 3 tournaments, and then our 10 1 and 10 2, obviously, they do a lot and they travel within a 2-hour radius. So I don't necessarily always count my 10-1 and 10-2 in our littles program just because they are very advanced. They're more of like, I mean, they practice with the 11s, they do their own thing. They're a little bit more, I mean, most of those kids, like I said, have been playing since they were 5 or 6 for us. So they get the whole concept of it. But um, I feel like our 9-1s team is very legit. They just played in a tens tournament and beat a lot of tens teams. They are strong. Serve every one of them serves overhand. They 3 hits every single time. They know how to base to read. They know, serve receive patterns. They do it all. Um, my 8-1s coach the other day, she's a 6'4", 18-year-old. She told me the other day she was teaching one of her 8-year-olds how to block. I thought I was gonna die. I was like, really? She's like, she's almost at the top of the net, so I'm gonna show her how to do it. And I was like, okay, let's go. Nobody's hitting, obviously, but again, the fun part of growing in the sport of being that age is trying to do what the big kids do, right? And
Right.
watching that progression. So um, I don't, to be honest with you, I think we have a very well-oiled machine. I think our kids are very fundamentally sound. They come back every year loving it. I don't know if I would change what we're doing, to be honest with you. I feel like, what I would love to see is other people have some nines to play in an actual nines tournament. You know what I mean? To do that, if I could change something,
Mm-hmm.
that would be so great. You know what I mean? Because and these nines are getting better because they're playing tens. But I also like the idea of them feeling successful within their own age group.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's just not enough people out there who do it. To be able to do that. But we like when we do our friendship scrimmages, we get maybe 2 or 3 other nines coming in. So we'll put them in their own pool. So they do get to play
Mm-hmm.
the nines against each other. Um, but I think what we do, I think the timing is right. We go 3 months, we go February to, April, for most of these young kids. So it's not, and then we take a week or two off and then we start programming. So like I said, that's where our sprinkles are starting. In 2 weeks, we call them storm chasers. That's our second through fourth grade. They'll come in and do training for 6 weeks, 2 times a week. Or so they get a real club season where they get to play some tournaments. They have 2 week break. They do 6 week training. They go into grade school and then, and they come and try out. So I think the schedule is good. I think the training is good. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I'd want to change
I
about.
think honestly, just hearing you talk about that calendar, the schedule where it's February to April, I mean, I can definitely see why you have the numbers on top of the quality of programming you have, the expectation for the parents to be able to have like for their kids to do all the things
Yep.
and then be able to do volleyball on a team. I think that time frame is awesome. Like February, April, but you still have the programming before and after. So they're still able to play volleyball almost year round, right? But
Yep.
it's not this like 6, 7, 8 month season.
Correct. Right.
It
I mean,
can
I think
sound
that's
really like a lot for the newer volleyball parents, you know?
right. Well, we call like our 9-1s, we call them our national travel team because and they're always like travel. I'm like, well, 20 minutes. You're going, you're going 20 minutes to this tournament, 30 minutes to this tournament.
Yeah, yeah, just
You're
not
not really
here. Yeah.
traveling, but I think the key is, I think sometimes we just burn these kids out by just doing too much, right? And if you're going to start at 4 and you're going to go all the way to 18 or even 22 through college, if this is what you're doing constantly every single day all the time, you're going to find burnout, right? I am, like you talked about, doing all the things. I am a huge advocate of multi-sport athletes. All of my kids are multi-sport athletes. I think they're better because of it. Um, and I just think if you're just honing in on one thing and that's it all the time, you're going to see that burnout more. And parents
Mhm.
aren't going to want to do it. That's their big question all the time is how much do I have to do? Right? Like,
Yeah.
because at little it's hard.
Yeah.
So finding that balance between giving them just enough to love it and feel satisfied and not overdoing it is important
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
February to April, do you have some 18, some players of yours that are coaching?
Yeah, so actually I always try my kids that go like my 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. my 9-1 are adults typically.
Okay.
All the other teams are my 17s and 18-year-old coaches.
So
And
if they're making sure they don't have a conflict, how do you work that schedule with their practices and
I do that. I do the schedule. I do all the scheduling and all the tournament scheduling. So we'll do like those kids that do the 8s, 9s, and 10s that don't travel, they do the 3 in-house. So we pick around 3 weekends that are around what they're not doing.
hmm
It works out really nice. And I'll be honest with you, like adults are great, but these 17s and 18-year-olds is where it's at. Like they understand the sport, they understand the drilling. They've been through NKYVC all the time. They have the verbiage, they know the drilling, they know the expectation, and they're role models. These little ones want to be them. You know what I mean? Like my daughter coached last year 8-1s, and she came back from college. She walked in the door at we have a tournament for the grade schoolers called Spooky Spikes, and her team was there, all different ones. Literally almost ran her over, like running, hugged, so excited to see her. I've had parents call me, like my 8-2 coach last year was great too, 18-year-old. Like for the next set of programs, they're like, is the coach going to be there? Because she'll only she'll only go if the coach is coming. Like, I just think
Oh,
the love they have for the older kids, you know what I mean? And you got to find the right older kids, obviously. They have to have a balance between good discipline and the energy, but putting a role model who's a really good volleyball player, knows what they're doing, is going to teach you and make you love the game and do it right. I mean, you can't go wrong. You know what I mean? Like I just think, and again, not that adults aren't great, but you have to have a special type of person to teach this age group. You know what I mean? You just have to.
oh
They
yeah.
have the patience, and you have to. And I always say, I think my players are better because they understand expectation. And it's easy to give that expectation, right? They've been through it for 12 years themselves. So who better than to teach the next generation? So
Yeah, well, I mean, you've hit on the retention piece. We've talked about it before, but for those, listening in, I feel like the value of grassroots programming lies in the retention of those players. And, it's common, right, for kids to club hop and make changes based on, you know, personal things and whatnot. Some kids move, right? Clubs close, whatever it may be. But a player entering your club at 8 years old, or in your case, sometimes younger, can be a member of your club for 10 years. And I'm just curious how you guys are doing it because you have so many players that are returning every year, very few new,
yeah.
um, in terms of your travel teams, right? And what do you feel like your club does well to retain those players?
I don't mean it to sound cliche, but it really is the culture. Like I just feel like if you create a culture that kids feel like they are a part of, um, then you can keep them, right? I think our expectation and what we expect out of our players is very high, but also our love for our kids is very high too. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they really just want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Like we create things like big sister, little sister programs, um, or just like the interaction, when you come to practice, we rotate courts and you are like my 14-year-olds might play my 17s one day. And so just being a part of something bigger than yourself, I think is kids want that. You know what I mean? They want the discipline, they want the structure, they want the love. So fundamentally, I think we're very, very good and people want to come because they know we're good fundamentally, but I think they want to stay because of the culture, because they love what it brings and what it does for them. And for me as a club director, it's so important, it's more than just the sport itself. Like that's my preach every year is like what you're learning here and what you're getting out of club volleyball isn't going to make you just a better volleyball player. It's going to make you a better person. It's going to make you, a better employee. It's going to make you a better friend. Like there's so many good life lessons within the sport itself that these kids can grow from. It's not just volleyball. And I think if you don't remind them of that and focus on that, they lose sight of it. And it is just then I'm here for to volleyball and I can jump a club and I can go here and here and here because nothing is important to me outside of playing the sport, right? Like, and I think sometimes we as directors forget that. And then you like, our 18s just finished their season and on social media, all their goodbye posts, you read these things and it's like, NKYVC was my family, was my second home, was, I'm gonna miss this place more. And that's when it's like, oh, I did my job right, right? Like
Right.
they want to be here and they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And that's what makes them good players and good people. And I think that is you have to create a culture of that. And it starts with your coaching staff, obviously, and then getting kids to buy in, expectation. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, for them to feel like, okay, I'm spending all this time doing volleyball, but it makes them feel so good and like a part, like you said, of something bigger than themselves that keeps them, so much more engaged and into it and avoids the burnout. So it's their family, right?
100%. Yep.
So you mentioned wanting some more, clubs to have nines teams, to kind of have some competition in the area. What advice do you have for clubs who are trying to figure out how to grow their grassroots programs and offer more teams at the younger ages?
I think the biggest, like I said, the most important thing is having the right people in the right spots, right? You got to have the right person who knows how to show love to make them really want to be there. Like I think sometimes as coaches, we get so involved with, I'm going to teach you this skill, I'm going to teach you this sport, I'm going to teach you, and we forget sometimes that we have to be cheerleaders too, especially for a 5, 6, and 7-year old. Like the director of my littles, she literally jumps up and down and high fives and scream yes. And I mean, like I tell her all the time, I think she's expended more energy in 1 hour with the littles than she does an entire day with all the older kids. You know what I mean? Because you just have to have that. And so putting people in a position that make kids want to be there. And I'll be honest, I think having your older kids be a part of that does change the way that it looks, and they jump on it. Like I sent a thing out the other day for kids to come work for the littles and the sign up was filled in 3 minutes. Like you know what I mean? They want to be there and you want to make sure that you have kids that are going to bring that energy or adults that are going to bring that energy. And I think if you can just make it fun for them, again, if you're going to bring them in and try to do, the actual hardcore team fundamental things at 6, that's not happening. But how do we teach them, use a lighter ball, do something fun, use a whatever. I would tell my littles, go home and throw a football with your dad. Dads don't know volleyball yet, probably some of them. So go throw football and learn how to shift your weight, to do some stuff and it pass a balloon or do whatever, just something where this is what I want to do, and it's not here for this hour but when I go home too, you know what I mean? And I think that if you can just start small and continue to grow it. I mean, for me, we do a good job on social media, but we haven't always been good on social media. And I think just word of mouth by the kids that have enjoyed it inside of the a program, it spreads so quickly. I know some people across the country have a harder time because, public schools don't start till 5th or 6th grade. And it's hard to get those kids in there. But again, I think if you just, small pockets of greatness will make kids come back, right? So 4 weeks, an hour, hour and a half a day, 1 to 2 times a week, and then a little bit of gap and then do it again. We're not committing to something huge as a parent. This is a new sport. I don't know about it, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Let's get them in and make them love it. And then coming back in smaller chunks, they're going to want to keep doing it because they're going to want for more. And so I don't know. I think that's the best advice. It's hard. And, it took us a while, but I think just trusting in the fact that these kids want to do it. I remember when my oldest, like I said, she's 20, she came and tried out for the eights team. And the director at the time, she was like, Jill, I don't think she's gonna make it. And I was like, she's 5. It's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and she was like, oh, I forgot she was 5. And I'm like, and she made it at 6, which is fine, right? But like just having that, we only got to have 1 or 2 teams though, and we work really hard at NKYVC to make sure that everybody at that age makes a team. Now, it's not always possible. Like last year, we had 15 8, 9s, and 10s, and I did have to cut a few kids because there's just no space, right? Like, if you put
Right.
too many kids in a space, then you lose sight of what the training really looks like, and it's just hurting cats at that point and
Yeah.
make any sense. But like if, if you're trying to start, take them all, figure out how to take them all and make them love it, just make it fun, simple, fundamental things. Celebrate when they do something great and keep it small so that they keep wanting to come back. I think
That's
that's,
such good advice, all of it.
well,
All of
thank
it. Yeah, you guys are definitely a leader in not just your area of the country, but our entire country and what you're doing from a grassroots standpoint. And yeah, it's been so cool to listen to you talk about it. And I can just feel like how proud you are and how it's this like your job, but it's fun. Like I
you.
guarantee you probably don't have a day that you dread when you walk into that gym and you can just feel what you guys have created. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you. We worked really hard at it. And again, I think I'm super blessed to have the people that I'm surrounded with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think as a club director, you have to have good people or it's not going to go where you need it to go. And sometimes that's hard, it's hard, but you gotta make the hard choices and get the right people in there to make it right for the kids and then everybody's going to want to be there. So,
Well, thanks, Jill.
yeah, you're
Appreciate your
welcome.
time today.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
can't wait to
fun.
share this. This is great.